All right, so most of us are afraid of something, right? Most of us are afraid of something, right? Right? Yeah. Maybe it's one of those really common fears like snakes or insects or spiders, something like that. Maybe you have one of those uncommon, random fears like balloons, feet, ducks, clowns. That's not an uncommon, sorry, that's a common. Clowns, common. But I'm super curious, so what I want you guys to do is, not everybody all at once, but I want to hear what your fears are. So just bounce around, popcorn style. What are you afraid of? The dark, okay. Clowns, a lot of things. Heights. What? Tryptophobia? What's tryptophobia? The fear of closely packed holes? Honeycomb spaces, okay. Death? Okay, wow. Woo! What? Poisonous animals. Well, that's a good fear to have. Killer animals. All right. So we've got some normal fears. We've got some uncommon fears. But we all have different things that we're afraid of. For me, the thing that scares me the most is not Becca. No. I can't believe you said that. Is heights, actually. I am really scared of heights, actually. So for me, there's this place in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I went to college, and I'm using this as a reference. So it's this skinny thing, and then it's got this gold globe at the top that you can walk in. It's called the Sun Sphere, and it's the outside of it is all glass. And so when you get up, you take an elevator up to the top. When you get up to the top, you can see all around you. So we did it. We actually did it when I first moved there. I did it, and then we took our youth group whenever we went to CIY while we were there. And I'm really scared of heights. Well, we're up there. It's like 7 stories at least high. Okay, I know that doesn't sound like a lot. But I got up there, and I got off the elevator. I was fine. I walked up towards the railing, and I look over, and I could see out for far away, and then I could feel the wind start to blow the building. And I was like, all right, this is why I'm scared of heights, because I'm scared that I'm going to fall. And I immediately went, ugh, and like my knees started crackling, and I walked backwards up against the wall and was like, nope, not moving. So I let the students walk all the way around a few times, and then I was like, all right, everybody ready? Everybody, like, hey, are we ready? Come on. And so I'm pushing the elevator so I can get down as quick as possible. I'm scared of heights. I can be, like, if you asked me to climb up on this roof here, completely different story. I grew up on roofs. But it's these situations that I feel like I can't control my situation in heights. And so I'm so scared. And why are we spending so much time talking about things we're afraid of? Well, because we are in the middle of this series called Into the Unknown. And we've been talking about how we have to deal with the many different changes and the unknown in our lives. And that might come our way, both good things and bad things. It might come to our way starting in middle school and high school, and then on throughout our life, we come to these changes and these unknown situations in our lives, right? And I don't know about you, but sometimes when we are dealing with the unknown, it feels a lot like dealing sometimes with spiders or heights or roller coasters. It can really frighten us. It can be scary. And maybe you can totally relate to this feeling. Maybe like me, whenever you feel fear, you've gone through, you felt some fear whenever you've gone through a change in your life. Like the first day at a brand new school. You walk in, you don't know who you're going to sit with lunch at who you're going to sit with at lunch. And you're not sure, am I going to be able to find my locker? And what are other people going to think of me? That can all be scary, right? Or trying out for the school play for the very first time. Am I going to be able to remember my lines? Am I going to mess up? And am I going to make a fool of myself? Am I even going to get a part? And being in the play, yeah, that'll be awesome. But I don't know if trying out can be okay, and it's scary. Or maybe it's having a new stepdad move into your house and wondering if he's still going to be cool when he moves in, or if it's just going to be awkward. Maybe you're going to have to move rooms. You're going to have to share a room with somebody now, and you're not sure how the rules in the house are going to change, and this can be just a little bit scary, right? The list can go on and on. You have a new friend group. You have the loss of a friendship that meant a lot to you. Your parents get divorced. An older sibling moves out. Your parent loses their job. You get a new small group, a new foster home placement, a starting position on the team, a sudden growth spurt, an illness in your family, a higher level class at school. It can keep going on. Changes are scary. And when we look ahead and we see changes like that coming our way, sometimes we don't know what's waiting for us in the unknown of the change. And it can leave us feeling a whole lot of fear in our lives. Maybe we're afraid that things will never go back to the way they were before. Or we're afraid that the changes that we're going to go through, that we're facing, it's going to bring a whole bunch of stress that's going to make us feel different. Maybe it's going to bring a whole bunch of frustration or sadness over our lives, and we're not sure how to deal with it. Maybe we're afraid of the unknown. Maybe we're afraid of the changes we're going to go through. Maybe we're afraid of the position we're in. Maybe we just don't like to know that things are going to be different. Maybe we don't like new experiences. Maybe we don't like the experiences that we're facing, and that just makes us afraid to move forward. Or maybe we're afraid to handle it alone. We're afraid we're going to be alone in the changes. Or if I change, that everybody's going to leave my side. That our friends, our family, our small group, and even God won't be there to help us deal with the changes. No matter what the changes and unknowns that you're facing in your life right now, no matter what they are, the chances are they make you feel a little bit nervous or afraid. And even the best kind of changes can be intimidating for us. It's possible to be excited about something and also a little scared at the same time, right? But what if I told you there's a way to look ahead at the coming changes without as much fear? In fact, what if we could face what we're going into the unknown, into the changes in our lives with, and instead of being fearful and afraid, and be excited about what we're going into, or to have courage to go into the unknown, into the changes we're going to experience. I bet all of us would like to be people who choose courage over anything else, and to choose courage when we go through the good or the bad changes in our lives. And today we're going to look at something that happened a little while ago, a long time ago, that happened to two guys thousands of years ago, when they were talking about and choosing courage despite their fears. And I think it's going to be good for us to do the same. And so we're going to talk about a few guys from the Israelites. The Israelites, as we talked about last week, are who we're studying. And at one point, they were God's chosen people. They're still God's chosen people, which is a cool title if you ask me. God's chosen people. And when they were living a long, long time ago, they actually had this thing called a famine come over the land, and they were really hungry. And a famine means that there was no food, and there was a drought, and they had to go find food. And so since there was a famine over the land, the Israelite people went down to Egypt, because an Israelite was actually... You have to read the start of Exodus, but an Israelite was actually put over, the end of Genesis, start of Exodus. An Israelite was put over all of Pharaoh's stuff. His name is Joseph with a technicolor coat, and and he was put over all of Pharaoh's stuff, all of his grain, and so he was put in charge of it. The Israelites came down, they got grain, and they ended up staying in Egypt because they were all part of Joseph's family. And so somewhere along the way, after a little while, the Israelites became slaves to the Egyptians. They started multiplying, and so the Egyptians didn't like the Israelites, and they made them slaves, and they made them build stuff, and they made them build the pyramids, and we get so many things that they're going through. And eventually, this guy named Moses comes along. You guys know this story, probably. Moses comes along and he says, "Hey, Pharaoh, let my people go." Pharaoh eventually, after lots of bad things happening to him, lets the Israelite people go. And they go towards the promised land. And you think, right? You're heading towards a land that is called the promised land. You'd be pretty excited. The Israelites, they were so excited. They got all the way up to the edge of the promised land. They're in the wilderness, like the desert, and they got to the edge of the promised land. And right as they got it at the edge of the promised land, they decided they're going to send some spies over into the promised land. And they started to get a little nervous. They were scared about what might lie ahead. So as they sent 12 spies over the land just to check things out, see how they could get into the land, if they had to do anything, see what it looked like, they sent 12 spies over, and the spies went in and found that the land was absolutely beautiful. It was everything that they had dreamed it would be. But there was one small problem. There were people who looked like giants that lived in the promised land. And suddenly, the change wasn't looking so awesome to them. And that's when the spies came back with a report. And in Numbers chapter 13, it says this: "They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here's its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and their cities are fortified and very large." The spies went on to tell the rest of the people of Israel that there was no way they could live there. They were too afraid. And now, in a lot of ways, you really can't blame them. They have to go into land. They're smaller people. They have to go into land, and they have to fight giants to even take the land. Giants are scary. Unless they're Brian. Brian is not scary. Giants are scary. I know, and going to war against giants is even scarier. Their fears were understandable, right? And I think the same can be true for us. The fears we are looking at, and the fears that we are looking ahead at, the changes we might deal with, are understandable. They're real. And there's nothing wrong with us feeling that fear. The problem comes when we let the fear hold us back. And when we stay frozen in our tracks because we're afraid of what's in the unknown. That's when we risk missing out on what God's really got in store for us. On missing out on something awesome that God's got in store with us, because we're so afraid of what change might do to our lives that we stay still. And that's what happened with the Israelites. You see, they were too afraid to conquer the people in the promised land. And so God said, okay, if you won't go do it, I'm going to make you stay in the desert for 40 years. And so God literally made all the people who had left Egypt, they had everything they needed in Egypt. He said, nope, you've got to stay and you've got to wander in the wilderness for 40 years until you all die. And there was two men named Joshua and Caleb. They came back with a different story, and so God blessed them. And Joshua and Caleb came back with a different view of things, and this is what they said. And they said to the entire Israelite assembly, "The land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, He will lead us into that land, and a land that is flowing with milk and honey, and He will give it to us." Only do not rebel against the Lord. And do not be afraid of the people in the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. That's Numbers 14, 7 through 9. You see, every one of those spies except Joshua and Caleb said, we cannot go into there. We can't conquer them. We can't do it. And so they all got scared. And everyone said they couldn't enter the promised land except these two, Joshua and Caleb. So what is it about them that made the response so different? How is it that made them stick out? How was it that Joshua and Caleb were able to see some giants, the same giants that everybody else saw, and see the courage that they needed to have to move ahead? The answer is simple. Super simple. They trusted God. They trusted God. He said that he would be with them. He promised them that it was their land to have. And Joshua and Caleb had a belief that God gave them the courage to move into the land. So at the outset of a big moment, when they needed the courage to move forward, even though they may have been scared, they had the courage to say, we should go forward. We should go into the land. And honestly, they were probably terrified. But here's the thing about courage. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about trusting and choosing to follow God, even though we are scared. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about trusting and choosing to follow God, even though we are scared. There's going to be moments in your life when changes are going to come about, and you're going to be scared of the changes. New school, new houses, new neighborhoods, new group, new church, new whatever. And you're going to be scared of the change. But it's having the trust and still choosing to follow God, having that courage to follow Him even when everything is changing around you. That's what courage is. And for me, when I think about courage, sometimes I think about that astronaut. Random thought, but we've been talking about astronauts this whole time, right? And how they go into space. We're going to show you an astronaut, maybe. Yeah, we're going to show you. And an astronaut, I may not be an astronaut, but I do know some things about astronauts. Like, it's probably safe to assume that they can be pretty scared at moments when they're going on missions. There are so many unknowns and so many things to be nervous about whenever you go into space, right? If your oxygen pressure is not right, it could crush your body, literally. So, there's so many things they could be nervous about. But astronauts have something that they can trust whenever they go out into space and venture into space. And their spacesuit. It's called their spacesuit. They can trust their spacesuit is built. It protects them and keeps them safe from anything they may encounter. The same is true for us. We may not have this huge white spacesuit that we can put on anytime, and it helps us anytime we're scared of going into the unknown. But we have something else that's even better. We have God. We have God to help us whenever we go into those situations of the unknown. Even though we may be scared about what we are going through, we have something that's bigger than what we're about to encounter in our lives. No matter how big the changes are that are coming over your lives, we have something that's bigger than the changes. And it's bigger than anything we can possibly encounter, and that's God. You see, we can be confident when everything changes because we have God on our side. Because God is bigger than anything in the unknown. Again, God is bigger than anything in the unknown. like Joshua and Caleb knew that God was bigger than our fears, we can also trust that trust God that when we're scared of change and in the unknown, that He is right there with us. As long as we trust Him, He can overcome our fears of the unknown. So what's this look like for us today? How can we have courage when we are going into changes, when we're going into the unknown, when life is not the same? How can we have courage? First off, I think we need to recognize what we are afraid of. Recognize what you're afraid of. When you look out at the unknowns of your lives, I'm not just talking about spiders. God can conquer spiders. It's called a shoe, okay? Okay? But in life, what in front of you do you need the courage to conquer? Recognize it. Recognize what you're afraid of. What do you see that's causing you the fear? Maybe your dad's getting remarried and it's left you afraid because your family's going to look different. Maybe it's a fight with your best friend that has you afraid that it's never going to be worked out. Maybe it's starting a new school that has you afraid that you'll be alone. Whatever it is, name the fear. Acknowledge what it is that you're afraid of. And then number 2, try and do what Joshua and Caleb did. Focus on God. What are you afraid of? Name it. Recognize it. And number 2, focus on God. When you think about the changes you're afraid of, remember that God is with you, and He's always working for your good. God is bigger than anything in the unknown. Let me share an idea that might help. Whatever you focus on, whatever you focus on will grow bigger and bigger in your mind, right? If you focus on what you're afraid of, what's going to happen? Your fears are going to grow. You're going to be more fearful about what you're going to do. Your fear will grow bigger and bigger in your mind. So instead, focus on God. Focus on who God is, how powerful God is, and how God is in control of everything. Focus on the fact that God is with you, and He is in you and is with you every step of the way. Focus on the truth that God is bigger than all of your fears and anything you face. Focus on the truth that God is working for good in every situation. And as you focus on God, what you'll find is that your fear is actually smaller than God is, and that it always was. Remember, God is bigger than anything in the unknown. And that means that we don't have to face our fears and our failures alone. And that's why we're in small groups together. If we feel like we're facing our fears, our failures, our unknown situations by ourselves, that's why we're in small groups. Because we have the opportunity to talk with them, with our small group leaders, with our small groups about what we're going through, the changes we're going through, how things are different for us. And they can help us be honest about why we're afraid and to face those fears. Today, I hope will be your first step to opening up to your small group about how change in your life is right now. And to help you do that, I want you to think about this one question as I dismiss you to groups. What's one change you feel nervous or scared about? What's one change you feel nervous or scared about? Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you for being in our lives. God, thank you for conquering our fears, even when we're scared of the unknown, God, that you have already paved a way, that you've already created a way, and that you are always there for us and with us. And you're already bigger than all of our fears and all the changes that we're going to go through and all of the unknown in our lives. And God, be with us and help us to talk about what we're going through in our groups tonight. It's in your Son's name we pray.